Hey, it's the Average Dan here with another issue with our 2009 Chrysler Town & Country. Today, while we were out and about, my daughter put down the window on the sliding door. And while she was in the midst of doing that, it stopped functioning. Now, I have a lot of experience with replacing power windows, especially I used to own a Chevy Silverado that used to eat through the power window mechanism fairly frequently. So a lot of them have cables, and the cables start to fray, and at some point they bound up the gears and will not move. This one is going to be the first time I've had to deal with a power window inside a sliding door, because as you can see, when you open the door, you can't get to the door, and obviously when the door is closed, you can't get to where you need to get to either. So I got to figure out whether I need to take the entire door off or whether I can find some way to move this, somewhere mid-range enough to be able to get to it. I'm hoping that, similar to other doors, that this simply pops, the inside door panel just pops off with a screwdriver, with those those plastic fasteners. But I do see a couple hex screws up here, so I'm going to start with those and work my way down and see what it takes to get this door open so we can take a look and see exactly what's going on. Now, the first thing I did was listen to the door when pressing the button to see whether there was any sound of the motor kicking in. In one direction, I don't recall if it was up or down, I can hear a click that happens further down in the door, so I do know that the switch itself is working. The motor seems to be working. Now it's just a matter of whether the motor is somehow bound up, or it's just the mechanism, like the cable or something, that is obstructed or broken or whatever. So I'm going to try to get this door apart, and we'll see what we can find. Alright, so just got under here, laying on my back under the car. Not necessarily my most favorite position, but one I tend to find myself in somewhat frequently. Alright, so as you can see in there, underneath the door panel, it does appear to be one of those little plastic push fasteners, so we can just take a screwdriver and work our way around the bottom after we take out those two side hex screws up there, and see what we're dealing with. Alright, so the one thing I did notice is that in the event that I actually have to take this off to work on it, it doesn't look too bad. So you got your electric running here. They do have a disconnect, fairly convenient, which would take, looks like that, and then just two bolts over here holding the door on this side. We'll take a look at the other side and see if that's any more involved. Alright, so on the other side, I got to give this some thought. I'm not sure to what degree or how strong this spring is right here. So my first thought would just be to remove these two. I just want to make sure if I do that it's not going to put me in a position where it's extremely difficult to get it back on because the spring goes in one direction or the other. I don't really want to move this pin, especially because the spring's there, and it just looks like a bigger pain in the butt. So I think I'm going to try taking off these two right here and just deal with the spring, whatever it, obviously it's going to straighten out. Hopefully it's not too strong that I can't get it back where it needs to be, but we'll figure out a way. Alright, for the bolts on the back of the door, it looks like a metric 10 is going to do the trick. Alright, so here's the view from underneath. I'm going to do this the best I can because I'm so close to the ground. So we're going to undo this attachment. There's a little plastic fastener right there that just goes into the door. We'll just pry that out. And then up right above this are the two bolts holding it on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a position for the door, halfway open, halfway closed. I'm going to throw a jack stand under this end. So I'm not really sure how heavy this door is, but I don't particularly want it sitting on my chest, so we'll do that and see how this goes. Alright, so I took the 2 bolts off the inside and undid that electrical harness there, and I just used a jack stand to keep the weight from pulling down on the other connection until I get that off. So that has that stabilized, and I can take off the other side. Before I take off the back, I'm going to take off, there is the one more connection on the top where it slides through the rail. I'm going to take off that first. Hopefully it won't be too top heavy that it'll want to flip out, but I think that's going to be the best bet to deal with the weight distribution while I'm trying to remove it with one person. Alright, so I think automotive engineers get bored sometimes and they want to screw the guy trying to work on a vehicle. So there's always that one bolt that you can't fit a socket or whatever tool you're using into. This is the one, this little thing out here creates just enough interference that I can't put a socket in here, so I'm just going to have to use an open wrench and remove that. Again, all of these are 1/2 inch, or I'm sorry, they are metric 10, not 1/2 inch. Alright, so from the book of Nothing Is Ever Easy, I finally got this silly door off the minivan. Of course, there is one cable still attached. Not even sure what the hell it is. I really don't care. But now I have it flat and I can take the panel off and see if I can figure out exactly what the problem is with the power window. So I went around and I took a look at this thing. Now, it seemed pretty straightforward to take the door off, and I went around and took these bottom 2 bolts were exposed. There were 2 on the back and 2 on the very top. And when I went to remove the door, it wouldn't move. Well, they tucked this sucker right here just under the plastic molding on the bottom of the door right here. This is where it attaches, the bottom 2 attach. So you actually have to pry the bottom of the door panel up and reach a wrench in there and undo that one. So I actually did, so here's what I did. I started down in this corner, which is the front bottom corner, opened the door like 1/3 of the way. I put a jack stand under this end to stabilize it. I took that off, and then I went to the top up here and I took these 2 off because I could support the weight between the jack stand and my hand, keeping it towards the car. I was able to do that. And then I went to the back and I took off those 2, at which point it was basically free floating with the other end on the jack stand. Now, that's when I discovered that this cable is still friggin' attached. Kind of a pain in the butt. This was after I undid the electrical panel. Not exactly sure what that is. I could probably look it up, but at this point I don't care. It was just a pain in the butt. So now I have it flat. I can go around it, release it, and see exactly what the problem is with this silly window. And just for the record, I'm not a Packers fan. I'm a Dolphins fan. My wife's a Packers fan. I have to live with it. Alright, so right near the handle there were a couple of hex screws that needed to be removed before you could pop the rest of this door. As you can see, the door is just on with those panel fasteners. You just need to find where each one is and get a screwdriver in there and kind of pop them. So here's what we're looking at on the inside. Also, to get the top of the panel to release, there was this little plastic thing here in the corner. To pop that off. I kind of sent my rubber askew, but otherwise, so this is what we're looking at. Not quite as good as I was hoping for because I can't really see anything exposed, but I'll try to reconnect the electric now and see what we get. Alright, so of course it's a Sunday night, because that's when problems always seem to happen, when you don't have any time to fix them. As you can see now, the window's up. So here's what I did. I got in here, I had access to the motor. The first thing I wanted to see is whether the motor was bad or whether the mechanics of the up and down had somehow been compromised. So what I did was take the motor There's 3 hex screws. I flipped it upside down here, took the gear out of the middle, and then I wanted to see what the problem is. So if we look at the motor, and I try to put the window up with the switch on the door, nothing. If I push down, the motor works fine. So that tells me there's something wrong with the motor. So, or at least that's the guess I'm going to make here. But more importantly is with the gear out of the workings of the actual, out of there, I was able to actually manually put the window up. So now I can put the gear back in with the window up and kind of lock it in place. I'll disable it so the kids can't accidentally roll it down, and then I'll order the parts, take it all apart again, and get that sucker working. So, but for this video, I was able to get the window up, locked in place. I'm going to order a new motor. Well, what I'll probably do is I'll probably take the motor off of this gear and see if the motor itself goes in both directions. That'll tell me whether there's a problem with the whatever gears might be in this little plastic part here, versus the motor itself. Because if the motor goes in both directions but the gears don't, that tells me there's a problem with the gears in there somehow. I'm not exactly sure how that's all laid out, but obviously there's some type of transitional piece given the layout, so we'll double check and see whether something in there may have broke or whether the motor's just bad. But for now, the window's up. It's Sunday night. I'm going to wrap this thing up for now, and we'll show you how we put this. All right, so when you go to put the motor back on, the connections and the little gearbox or whatever that it connects to kind of falls back in through the hole. There's this convenient little flap here, so you reach your hand in here and you kind of hold it up and make sure all the little black posts come out of the holes, and then you can line it up while you're holding it, get your screws in, get it nice and secure. And once that gear is back engaged in the middle, it's going to keep the window up. So that is all we're going to do for tonight. I took out a couple screws I didn't need to. There were some hexes in here. We're going to put all those back, and we're going to get this door reassembled, and then we will call it a night.